Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Off the Cuff. I'm here with John Daly. John and I go over the topics we want to discuss. I never ask what he's going to say about it. He doesn't ask what I'm going to say about it. He doesn't tell me what to say. I don't tell him what to say. But I'm going to start today with something John has no idea of what it's about. I didn't mention it to him. I don't want him to get hit with the flack that may very well come out of this topic. It's about the brawl in Cincinnati over the weekend, whose video went viral. If you haven't seen it, take a look. I'm sure you have seen it, though. This is about journalism that I want to talk about. And I'm going to talk very slowly and very carefully because one little mistake and people will be out to get you. I can handle it, but I don't need it. The brawl, the video on the brawl shows a bunch of black people attacking a white man, elderly white man it appears to be. And when a white woman went to his aid, she was sucker punched by a black man and knocked out cold. I've read a lot of stories about this. I want to be very clear to state the obvious. I haven't read every story in the entire United States of America that was written about it, but I read a lot. And none of the stories that I read mentioned anything about race. Now, as a journalist, I've said before, you don't mention race. You do not mention race when it's not relevant. If a black man goes into a drugstore and steals stuff and walks out, you don't say, Jim Smith, a 25-year-old black man, stole stuff from a drugstore, because his race isn't relevant. And in this case, do we know if race is relevant? Do we know that the black people said anything about beating people up because they're white? No, we don't technically know, but I think we know. I think anybody who saw that video at some point said, at least to himself or herself, come on, a bunch of black people beating up white people. Now, the first thing I thought when I noticed that there was no mention of race is, what if it were the other way around? What if a bunch of white thugs, it's a word you're not supposed to use when referring to black people who beat people up, but what if there were a bunch of white thugs who beat up an elderly or older black man, and when a black woman went to his defense, some white idiot sucker punched her and knocked her out cold? Do you think the stories that are written about that would mention that a white mob attacked two innocent black people? I think it would, and you think it would, and yet there was no mention. I want to make something very clear. In this country, we have an ugly racial history, slavery, segregation, and in case this needs to be said, I won't wash my hands in the same sink with a bigot. And if anybody out there thinks I'm talking about anybody, any black people other than the black people involved in this, you're wrong. I'm not making any general statements about anybody. I'm only talking about what we saw. I want to make one other point. There are no limits to white liberal guilt, even though in this case, it isn't only white journalists who are looking the other way. I haven't seen any mention of race in any stories that I've read. What we're seeing here is liberal guilt, journalistic liberal guilt. There will be people out there who want to say, oh, Bernie Goldberg is a bigot because he mentioned this. No, Bernie Goldberg is a journalist who isn't going to ignore the elephant sitting in the middle of the damn room. This is a story that is being handled horribly, and it wouldn't be handled horribly if the tables were turned, if it were a white mob attacking innocent black people. This is bad journalism. That's what this is about. I'm not going to ask John to weigh in. If he wants to, he can jump in, but I'm not going to ask him to, because there will be fallout from this, or at least there may be fallout from this, and John doesn't deserve any of it. So I'm going to move on to what we have on our agenda today, if that's okay with you, John.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. Epstein. Here's another thing I'm not thrilled about. Democrats want to keep it in the news because they say they care about what happened to those teenage girls. MAGA wants to keep it in the news because they say they care about what happened to those teenage girls and they want justice. Maybe they do, but that's not what this is about. This is the no BS zone, and I'm sick and tired of BS. This is about Democrats. Well, let's start with Republicans. This is about MAGA hoping prominent Democrats are on the list, which I don't believe exists, that they can expose and talk about for the next 3.5 years. And Democrats are hoping, praying that Donald Trump's name is associated with this, not as a friend of Epstein, or not only as a friend of Epstein, but as someone who was involved in Epstein's illegal activities with the girls. That's what this is about. I don't think, frankly, either side cares all that much about the girls. They care about politics. And I think I'm sick and tired of it. I'm going to read you one sentence from the Washington Post before I throw to Daily. Trump ought to know that when you're the conspirator in chief and promise to release the Epstein files upon becoming president, but think out, your co-conspirators are going to conspire right back at you. What's he hiding? How many times does his name appear? What gives? MAGA started this, and now Donald Trump is trying to clean up the mess. I'm not putting that part of it on Democrats, but I am saying Democrats are hoping and praying Donald Trump's name is on it because they want to exploit that. And MAGA is hoping prominent Democrats' names come out because they want to exploit it. And I am sick of the whole damn thing.
All right. Well, Bernie, I think you brought up a strong point right at the beginning there too. So right now, I think we're at this point that this story is no longer being driven by the right wing, Fox News, Newsmax, and MAGA influencers. I think I kind of just want to move on from this now, just as Trump clearly wants to. And now it's like you said, the legacy media. I think they're taking lead. There was that Wall Street Journal piece that report about those alleged birthday letters that Trump and drawings that Trump sent to Jeffrey Epstein allegedly. We now know that Trump is in the Epstein files, not that, aka the legal case files, not any kind of client list. I agree with you. I don't think there ever was a list, and that falls on MAGA world for pretending that there was, and people like Cash Patel. We're also seeing some of these old reports. The mainstream media is showing that old interview with Jonathan Swan, that sort of famous one from a few years ago, where Trump strangely, wished well to Ghislaine Maxwell, which was weird at the time, but it kind of got lost in some of the other weird things that happened in that exchange. And now there's a lot of talk. It's funny is where this story has sort of has how it has evolved. Now the big talk is whether Trump may pardon Maxwell, perhaps in exchange for her not exposing embarrassing revelations about him, which is obviously what the left would like, or maybe even speaking out in defense of Trump, exonerating him somehow. I'm curious, Brady, do you have any thoughts on this idea of?
I do.
Okay.
And I'm glad you brought up the pardons because this is another media thing. No matter where he goes, whether it's the White House, outside the White House, Scotland, it doesn't matter. It's reporters who say, are you going to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell? Trump says, and I'm not a Trump fan, but I'm going to support him on this. He said, I haven't thought about it. I don't know. So because he hasn't said no, they say in the lead, they say Trump won't, and you just said it too, John, Trump won't rule out pardoning Maxwell. That's technically true, but he's not bringing it up. The media is bringing it up.
Yeah, what gets me is that I think the story sort of came from, so Maxwell's legal team has sort of put out there or let it slip that she indeed wants a pardon, and I would sort of blow it off otherwise from Trump's perspective, but it's funny. I think some of the people in his orbit are sort of going, kind of trying to figure out what he's going to do, and they're sort of leaving this idea open. I know there have been some on the right, including Newsmax's Greg Kelly, who's been sort of floating this idea that Maxwell may have been a victim in all of this. And you got people like
I've seen.
Mike Johnson, who originally spoke out against the pardon pretty strongly, sort of backtracking now, think, well, what if Trump does do this? So it's sort of strange to see how people are responding to this.
I want to say one last word on this, and it's about CNN. By the way, we have a very prominent CNN person, journalist, who subscribes to our website. I like him. I think he's a smart guy. I hope he watches this part. We know Fox is biased, and MSNBC isn't even worth talking about. What makes CNN worse, in my mind, is that they pretend to be a serious news organization, absent any biases. That's bull. They are an anti-Donald Trump channel. Now, do they report things that are false about Donald Trump? No, they get it right. It's the amount of coverage. So if when you stop watching this, you go to CNN, within 10 seconds of turning your TV on to CNN, you're going to hear the name Jeffrey Epstein. They can't help but talking about it. And why do they talk about it so much? Because just like the Democrats talk about it, they think it hurts Republicans and hurts Donald Trump. And that's what CNN does also. Same thing, same mindset. CNN is worse than Fox and worse than MSNBC because they should be better. And they think they're better, and they're not. I want to move on. Wall Street Journal, I'm on a roll today, right? I'm like, I need something to bring me down because I'm annoyed as hell at all the bullshit that's going on in journalism. I can't handle it. And, people write and say, one of the people wrote after my column this week and said, I don't watch the news anymore unless it's a big story. I'm with you, my friend. I'm sick of it. Okay, I got to calm down. Wall Street Journal poll just came out. 63% of voters hold an unfavorable view of Democrats. Only 33% hold a favorable view, and 8% of Democrats hold a very favorable view of their party. I'm going to throw this to the smarter, calmer, more analytical person on this panel, John Daly. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary. You said just 33% view the party favorably. You broke it down to that other number, but this is worse than Trump's numbers and the Republicans' numbers, which are low as well, but not this low. And I think the average voter at this point sees the Democrats as, and I think rightly, as not having a coherent message and not offering good ideas. They're just sort of this opposition party who kind of reflexively gets upset, in some cases rightfully, from something Trump's doing, but they're not, they're sort of impotent, and they're not doing. A lot of people on the Democratic side don't think they're doing enough to oppose Trump, and in some cases they can't. But it's I think everybody's sort of frustrated at what the Democratic Party is right now. So I guess I'm not really that surprised by these results, although they're definitely remarkable. But yeah, it's you always sort of get I always get the sentiment from both sides where, if all my side has to do is be competent and the other side is so bad, the bar should be pretty low. So all they have to do is act a certain way, act like adults, be the adults in the room, and it just doesn't happen. And it's a frustration on both sides. But right now, it's notable that the party out of power is usually doing a little bit better in the polls than the party that's in power, because they can't be held as responsible for what's going on. And but that's not the case right now, and I think that's interesting.
I have a couple of people I know, friends, good people, who are very liberal, very anti-Trump. Okay, they're entitled. And I say to them, You don't know why you lost the last time. You still don't understand it, because saying Trump bad isn't enough of a policy for your team. And you talked about how they reflexively come out with anything Trump does they think is bad. You're absolutely right, John. But that's not enough. You can't simply say, if you're a liberal, well, I hate Donald Trump. And that's not the end of the discussion. That's not even the beginning of a serious discussion. But that's all that liberals have at this point, in addition to not having a leader, not having someone we can focus on as their representative, their spokesperson. They can't open their mouth without saying something bad about Donald Trump. And that's just old. That's just tired. That's just ineffective. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. I think the Democrats are in. I think sort of an element too. I think that is true about this is that they can't do the same. They can't effectively go after Trump the same way they've been able to go after other Republicans in the past because he has sort of embraced a lot of what they have been known for doing. They can't really go off on him about how much spending he's making because the Democrats are just as bad. They spent just as badly. They can't really. They've tried to go after him on entitlements, but Trump doesn't want to reform. Entitlements need to be reformed, but he doesn't want to do the heavy stuff on Social Security, just like they. So he's sort of taken away a lot of their policy-based arsenal, I think, as well.
I think you're right. Let's move on to liberal bias in the news. I wrote a column this week about Skydance, which is taking over Paramount, which is the parent company of CBS and CBS News. And they say they're going to install an ombudsman, which is a judge of sorts, to examine complaints about bias in the news. I want to make something very clear. I understand that most people don't care about what CBS News is doing. The reason I wrote about this is because, to the best of my knowledge, and I was at CBS News as a journalist for 28 years, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time the institution is taking the charge of liberal bias seriously and wants to deal with it. That, I think, John, is important. That they actually, look, I wrote a book called Bias. I wrote it it came out right after 9/11. It was a wake-up call, a warning. And my colleagues in the press not only ignored it, but without reading it, they called me every name in the book, including a traitor. Right? They don't call real traitors a traitor, but they call me a traitor. I survived. I'm here talking to all of you. They may not survive. The new people, there's a new sheriff in town at CBS, and they're not going to take bias. They're not going to allow it. There are going to be people who lose their jobs, I think. There's going to be a new CBS News. In some ways, it's going to be smaller. Salaries are going to be cut, I believe. But to the extent that they try to root out bias, that's a good thing. Now, let me make a comment about that. I think that's really important. It's not going to go over well at CBS News with the journalists. I know journalists. I know the journalist mentality. If somebody comes in with an allegation of liberal bias and it's not accurate, the hard right, the MAGA people are going to say, oh, CBS installed an ombudsman who's only a liberal hack covering for liberal hack journalists. So that's not going to go over well. And if the ombudsman says, no, the allegation of bias is legitimate, then the journalists are going to say, oh, Skydance installed a conservative ombudsman and he's not legitimate. Whoever the ombudsman is, he's going to be like herding cats. It's not a job. He needs a helmet, as I said in the column I wrote this week. It is not a job I envy. It's not a job. Whoever takes it better know what he or she is getting himself in for, because it ain't going to be a pleasant ride.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in sync with that, Bernie. I'm all for an ombudsman looking into reports of bias at any news organization. I wish this person well, but my sense is, as you say, they'll find themselves in this no-win situation. For these reasons that you pointed out. Um, I think depending on their findings, they'll be demonized by one side or the other, and in the end, I'm not sure anything will change as a result. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth a try, and I wish other news organizations would follow their example. I'd love to see that at everywhere, from Fox News to MSNBC. But again, there's a model that they're all those cable networks rely on right now that sort of kind of goes against this view of being fair and balanced.
I wish the folks at Skydance, sincerely wish the folks at Skydance, David Ellison and his team, I wish them nothing but good luck. But I'm not sure they understand the mentality of journalists. And they're going to need a lot of good luck in this. Let's move on to one more topic, or at least another topic. Republicans in the House are investigating Joe Biden's mental health. They brought in several people to testify. Several people took the fifth. The Donald Trump's chief of staff did not answer the questions, presumably honestly. Now,
Joe Biden's chief of staff,
what did I say?
Donald Trump, I think.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. So thank you.
Sure.
They're investigating Joe Biden's mental health. Joe Biden's team was brought in to be questioned about what they knew about it. Some of them took the fifth. Not sure that's self-incrimination. I'm not sure what that's about. You, John, think it's important for Congress to look into this. Me, not so much. You go first.
Sure. No, it's we talked about, there was a part of this we talked about, I believe it was 2 weeks ago on the No BS Zone, about taking his doctors to task and trying to get medical information. I agree with I think we're the same on that one. I don't think that's ethical, but I do think a congressional investigation does not require the belief or even the suspicion that something illegal was done. Congressional investigations can be done for purposes of oversight, fact finding, and public accountability. For example, I was very much in favor of the Benghazi investigation, whether or not laws have been broken by the Obama administration. I think what happened with Benghazi, including how the Obama administration handled it, they put out a lot of false information about it. I think that warranted investigation. The same goes for the January 6th investigation. That event was a big deal. It was an insurrection by pure definition. The Democrats obviously didn't take Benghazi seriously. Nonetheless, we discovered things that I think the public deserved to know. The Republicans, except for a few, didn't take the January 6th stuff seriously. Still, we learned a lot from the investigation, which I think was important for the public record. So likewise, I think the cover-up of Biden's mental health issues was a big deal. I think it was a bona fide scandal. I still don't think we know the extent of it, including who is making some key decisions on President Biden's behalf. So yeah, I'm fine with investigating it. If they decided not to, I guess I wouldn't be that upset, but I do support it. I think my biggest concern is that Republicans won't take this investigation seriously. I don't think James Comer, for example, is a very serious person. I think he's really sort of a clown. And if this ends up being nothing more than a big clown show by the GOP, maybe I'll end up regretting my support for it, but I guess we'll see.
I'm all for historians looking into this and writing about it. Honest historians, not historians with a partisan bent, but I'm all for that. Journalists are already writing about it. God knows how many books have come out in the last few months about Joe Biden's mental health. My concern, John, is that I see this as one more partisan attack aimed at making the other side look bad. You mentioned Comer. I don't think Comer is doing this for any other reason than to make Joe Biden look bad and his team look bad and Democrats look bad. And I think it's one more partisan attack that I'm not going to go off the deep end on, but that I'm sick of. I'd like to know, I think we know that Joe Biden wasn't playing with all 52 cards. I think that's obvious. I don't think we need an investigation about that. I think the investigation is, I'm glad books have been written about it, but I don't think a Republican investigation is designed to do anything more than score political points, and I'm sick of that. Now, here's a topic that I know nothing about. I haven't asked John anything about it, but you know John Daly as the smarter of the two of us who sits and comments on important issues. But you don't know about Hollywood, John Daly, do you? You don't know about Hollywood. He's nodding in agreement. John
Right.
Daly went out to Hollywood this past week. I don't know what he discussed out there. He just told me, Bernie, I'm going to Hollywood. I didn't ask. I'm going to find out the same time you find out.
And I didn't even tell Bernie if I was coming back, so
Right.
that was probably a little selfish
Absolutely
on my
right.
But no, my wife and I last week we vacationed in the belly of the beast, Bernie, Hollywood, California. So more specifically, Studio City. And I got to say, we loved it. We've been there a few times in recent years, and we always enjoy it. It's one of those places that where I would never want to live, but I really do enjoy vacationing there. We saw the Groundlings comedy troupe. We hiked around Griffith Park.
Hey, John,
We met,
hold on. I don't care
yes.
about you hiking around Griffith Park. I want to know, I want to know what moguls you met out there and if you're going to come back and stay with the No BS zone or not. That's all I care about.
Yeah, no, I'm weighing it. I'm weighing it, Bernie. So no, we went out there. So it was partially a part of business stuff. Um, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, actually, who I won't bring up the name here, but it was also mostly just to kind of get out and have a good time. But we ate at some old school. There are some Hollywood links here, Bernie. We ate at some old school Hollywood eateries, including the Rendition Room at Vitello's. This is the restaurant where actor Robert Blake's wife was murdered,
Yeah.
presumably by. Go ahead, Bernie.
No, that's where the Hollywood bigwigs like you hang out. Yeah, go ahead.
That's right. That's right. We had the rendition room is this very exclusive back back of the building sort of room. Very dark. You got to dress up. You have to have a certain look, Bernie. I was turning a lot of heads going in there,
Exactly.
and but this is that parking lot where Roberts Blake wife was murdered, presumably by someone Blake hired, although he got off for that. We also had lunch at Casa Vega. Some people might recognize this name. We ate at the very same booth where Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio
Hold on.
sat in the great
I'm
film.
leaving now. I'm leaving now. I can't take any more of this. You're eating in
Is
the
that
same
too much information?
you're eating at the same restaurant. Was Brad Pitt at the same table as you and your wife?
No, no. He was for people who like that movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There's a few times in the movie where the two eat there.
Yeah.
We actually have the booth labeled that way, and so we got that, and that was very exciting. Um, we also ate at the Formosa Cafe in a train car right next to an actor, Bernie, that you may remember. His name is Bruce Weitz. He played Sergeant Mick Belker on Hill Street Blues. You remember that?
Oh,
Remember that?
absolutely. Great show.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, definitely. And he was the guy that kind of growled at people. Anyway, his wife, who I'm sure is a lovely
He's the
woman.
guy who said, "Be careful out there."
Yeah, no, he
Oh,
was
no,
the
no,
one
no. He
who
was
was
the crazy one who bit people that he arrested.
yes, that's right. That's right.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so we sat next to him and we sort of found it amusing. His wife was with him, and she was really, as they might say on Hill Street Blues, breaking his balls, Bernie. And we eavesdropped a little, heard some things. I won't repeat them here. Just gonna say that I felt a little bad for Belker that night. But yeah, we had a great time. I would highly recommend people stay at the Garland Hotel. It was founded by actress Beverly Garland. So the initials BG are everywhere, which is perfect for you, Bernie. Has a great late 60s theme to it. So yeah, I would definitely throw it out there, recommend it to people. It was a blast.
Hold on just a second.
Oh, he has left. He's leaving the room, folks. So I think I know what's going to happen.
I'd like to present this award for the biggest name dropper in American popular culture today, the award for King of Name Dropping, John Daly. I award this to you.
Thank you, thank you. And it's funny you're giving me a hard time about being a Hollywood elite while you have 14 Emmys behind you, Bernie. So I think
Hey,
you've been. I think you've been to Hollywood a few times yourself. Am I right?
you can, anybody can buy them at Amazon as I did. You,
Excellent.
I gotta go now. I can't take any more of this.
All
We
right.
started out crazy, we ended up crazy. Hope you liked it. If you didn't, we'll be back and try to do better next time. Adios.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.